In the late Heian period, the nights at the Imperial Palace in Kyoto were defined by an oppressive, waiting silence. In the year 1153, that silence began to break. Every night during the hour of the ox, a dense black storm cloud would gather over the palace's main hall. From the center of the vortex came a high-pitched metallic screech that left the young Emperor Konoe collapsed in the grip of violent, unexplained fevers. To the imperial court, this was no mere storm. In their worldview, such localized atmospheric disturbances were spiritual omens, signaling a deep imbalance that threatened the health of the sovereign and the stability of the state. With the emperor's condition worsening, the court turned to Minamoto no Yorimasa, a master archer known for his steady hand and his ability to remain calm in the face of the supernatural. Standing in the dark, mist-veiled courtyard, Yorimasa could see nothing but the swirling fire in the clouds. He drew a heavy bow strung with an eagle-feathered arrow, relying entirely on his hearing to track the source of the unearthly scream. This was a standoff between human discipline and a creature formed from the darkest corners of the unknown. Yorimasa waited for the exact moment the sound reached its peak before releasing his shot. If we freeze time just as that arrow flies, we can clearly see the physical impossibility Yorimasa was facing. The Nue is a grotesque composite. It features the cunning face of a monkey, the thick body of a tanuki, the powerful limbs of a tiger, and a venomous serpent for a tail. This specific combination of animals is not random. It follows the logic of onmyodo, or Japanese geomancy, which maps specific creatures to the cardinal directions of the zodiac. The monkey occupies the southwest-west, the tiger sits in the northeast-east, and the snake covers the south-southeast. Each of these animals represents a distinct directional energy in the cosmic grid. In this system, the northeast is the Kimon, the demon gate, while the southwest is its spiritual counterpart. By grafting a northeast tiger to a southwest monkey, the creature's anatomy forces these opposing gateways into a single form, creating a state of constant spatial instability. This makes the Nu more than a monster. It is a physical manifestation of a broken natural order, a creature whose very existence radiates the disharmony that was making the emperor sick. To understand how this monster was born, we have to look past the scales and fur to the linguistic roots of its name, found in texts like the 8th century Kojiki. Originally, the Nu wasn't a chimera at all. It was the name for the white's thrush, a shy nocturnal bird whose metallic, whistling call was often heard in the dead of night, but rarely seen. Because the bird remained hidden in the darkness, the Heian period imagination filled the void left by its mournful sound. Over centuries of oral storytelling, a simple avian cry was transformed into the image of a terrifying storm-dwelling beast. Back in the courtyard, Yorimasa's arrow finds its mark. A hideous shriek echoes through the palace as the monster is struck down, its physical form finally crashing into the tiled rooftops. This 19th century woodblock print captures the climax. As the smoke clears and the retainer delivers the final blow, the emperor's fever breaks instantly. The threat to the imperial line is neutralized. But while Yorimasa could kill the physical beast, the cultural fear of the Nu and the belief in the curses it carried would prove far more difficult to bury. Even after the victory at the palace, the dread shifted from the sky to the water. The story followed the flow of the Kamo River, leading away from the capital and toward the coast. The court feared the concept of tatarigami, the powerful, vengeful spirit of a killed monster. They believed that if the Nue's corpse remained in Kyoto, its lingering rancor would manifest as a devastating plague. In an act of spiritual containment, they sealed the remains inside a hollowed-out log and cast it into the river, hoping the current would carry the curse far enough away to protect the imperial city. The raft drifted into the territories of Osaka and Hyogo. Fearing that the dead creature would bring misfortune to their own shores if ignored, local villagers retrieved the remains from the river. To appease the spirit, they built Nuezuka, stone mounds dedicated to the creature's memory. These aren't just ruins. Even today, locals maintain these sites with ritual ropes, ensuring the ancient beast remains at rest. The new reminds us a simple sound in the dark can grow into a physical legend, eventually carving itself into the very landscape of the country. If you want to see more deconstructions of classic yokai lore, like and subscribe, and tell us in the comments which creature we should look at next. It is somewhere between 1 and 3 a.m., the hour of the ox in rural Japan. The moon casts a pale glow over the empty fields, and the only sound is the wind. Suddenly, the ambient noise drops to dead silence. Then, a sharp, high-pitched ringing pierces your ears, a spiritual disturbance caused by the crushing pressure of an immense, necrotic aura displacing the air around you. By the time you register the ringing, the source is already hovering directly above you. A 90-foot colossal skeleton, built from thousands of clattering human bones, reaches down with an open, predatory jaw. This is the Gashadokuro. It does not haunt a specific house or politely rattle chains. It operates as a supernatural apex predator, hunting the living with absolute stealth before leveraging its immense scale to ambush its prey. The roots of this monster lie in historical trauma. In eras of severe famine, victims were frequently left unburied in open fields. On battlefields, fallen soldiers routinely rotted where they collapsed, completely deprived of the funeral rites required to guide their souls to the afterlife. In traditional Japanese belief, dying in agonizing physical pain or overwhelming rage generates onryo, a lingering, vengeful malice. Without the proper rituals to untangle that resentment, the soul remains anchored to the mortal plane. When hundreds or thousands of unburied bodies decompose in the exact same area, these unfulfilled grievances pool together. The immense concentration of ambient hatred acts like a magnet, drawing the scattered, bleached bones out of the soil and fusing them into a single gargantuan structure. If you want to know exactly how to survive an encounter with this massive predator and support more deep dives into global folklore, make sure to hit subscribe, because fighting back is not an option. Today, the Gashadokuro stands as a physical, towering monument constructed entirely from the neglected victims of mass trauma. Despite its massive size, the creature moves with a supernatural silence that defies its own anatomy. The name Gashadokuro is actually an onomatopoeia. Gasha gasha mimics the harsh grinding sound of dry bones knocking against each other, while dokuro means skull. Yet victims almost never hear that clattering until the ambush is already underway. Driven by an eternal hatred for the living, it reaches down to grab its prey, biting off the victim's head and draining their blood, an act that briefly soothes the overwhelming spiritual hunger fueling its skeletal frame. You cannot fight it. Slashing or crushing the bones does absolutely nothing, because the bones themselves are just a temporary physical shell. The true creature is the localized knot of spiritual malice holding the framework together. The beast dissolves into bone dust under the purifying light of the morning sun, meaning absolute evasion until daybreak is one option. Alternatively, high-ranking Buddhist monks or Shinto priests performing powerful purification rites can untangle the resentful souls, forcing the massive skeleton to collapse. Surviving a Gashadokuro relies entirely on outlasting the night or seeking immediate divine intervention. But if we look past the in-universe folklore and examine the historical record, we find that the massive skeletal predator we recognize today didn't actually originate in ancient texts. Its modern form was born in the 19th century Edo period, at the precise intersection of old myth and fine art. In 1844, ukiyo-e master Utagawa Kuniyoshi created this famous woodblock triptych. It depicts Princess Takayasha using dark magic to terrorize a warrior. Kuniyoshi ignored the original legend of a normal skeletal army, condensing them into one overwhelming behemoth to make the scene visually commanding. The creature's defining physical trait, its terrifying 90-foot scale, originated strictly as a creative, artistic choice designed to maximize dramatic impact on a woodblock print. While the fear of unburied bones and vengeful spirits spans centuries of Japanese history, the precise rules governing this specific monster are surprisingly modern. In the 1960s and 1970s, pioneering folklore researchers and influential manga authors, most notably Shigeru Mizuki, creator of Gegege no Kitaro, began gathering these disparate historical concepts and artistic visuals. They formalized the lore, officially designating the giant skeleton as a distinct, independent yokai species, and locking in the name Gashadokuro into modern popular consciousness. The creature we recognize today is effectively a cultural mosaic, constructed seamlessly from centuries of real tragedy, 19th century artistic embellishment, and 1960s media codification. Beneath the layers of pop culture and artistic license lies a suffocating atmosphere of dread, rooted in the pale bones of history. The mechanical terror of a 90-foot skeleton mirrors the psychological anxieties of a populace that routinely faced mass starvation and devastating wartime casualties. It serves as a grim warning. When thousands of people die in agony and their remains are left to rot in open fields without dignity or prayer, that immense collective suffering does not simply vanish, it gathers in the earth, and eventually it rises up to consume the living. The Gashadokuro endures as the inescapable consequence of a society abandoning its dead. You are sailing off the coast of feudal Japan on a wooden merchant ship. It is an unnervingly calm, moonlit night, and the sea surface looks like black glass. Without warning, that calm shatters. Violent, swirling squalls erupt from nowhere, and deep vortexes lock their grip onto your ship's hull, and entirely bald, towering several stories above your deck. This classic ukiyo-e print captures the sight that petrified sailors for centuries. Through the dark ocean spray, two massive circular eyes burn with a haunting phosphorescent glow, locking their gaze onto the crew. Then the monster leans over the ship. In a deep, booming voice, it makes a single demand: hand over a wooden barrel. This is the Umibōzu. If you panic and hand over a standard container, your entire crew will be dragged into the abyss in a matter of minutes. But if you have prepared for this specific encounter, you might just survive. Today, we are breaking down the mechanics of this maritime horror. We'll look at the tactical trick used to survive it, and the lethal, real-world oceanic phenomena that birthed the legend. Hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. I want to hear in the comments, do you think you could keep your cool enough to trick an Umibōzu? Most Japanese yokai are tied to the land, hiding in forests or creeping through villages. But the Umibōzu is different. It is a catastrophic specter that belongs strictly to the deep, open ocean. Even its name points to its physical form. Bozu refers directly to the smooth, hairless head of a Buddhist monk, much like these priests. When the creature breaches the surface, its massive bald head is the first thing crews see. Its hunting strategy is built on catching sailors off guard. Instead of attacking during an existing storm, it strikes on perfectly calm nights, generating localized squalls like these that leave the ship trapped in a sudden tempest. This leads to the fatal mechanics of the barrel demand. If given one of these traditional wooden vessels, the monster uses it to rapidly scoop enormous volumes of seawater directly into the ship's hold. The Umibōzu weaponizes the crew's own equipment. By using the sailors' tools against them, it can swamp a vessel and drag it to the bottom in minutes. You cannot fight the open ocean with blades or bows. Because the Umibōzu is an embodiment of the water itself, the only defense is a battle of wits. Experienced feudal captains kept a very specific countermeasure aboard their ships for this exact moment: a barrel with the bottom deliberately removed. The creature is bound by a ritualistic compulsion. The moment it is handed a container, it must begin scooping water to sink the ship. When the crew tosses the bottomless barrel into its hands, the monster begins to scoop. It plunges it into the sea and pulls it up, only to find it empty. It tries again and again, becoming deeply confused as the water instantly drains out the bottom. Exploiting this supernatural glitch buys the crew the vital seconds they need. While the monster is distracted by the broken barrel, the sailors can raise their sails, catch the localized wind, and steer clear of the vortex. For centuries, seafaring communities had to find a way to explain why a ship might suddenly vanish on a perfectly calm night. We now know that the towering black mass, described by survivors, correlates to real-world terrors, rogue waves, and nighttime microbursts. These sudden vertical shifts in the ocean surface can easily capsize a fragile wooden ship in seconds. Nighttime visibility and thick mist further fueled the legend. In the middle of a panic, a surfacing animal can easily be distorted into a monster. This is a basking shark. Imagine its massive, smooth head breaching the water near your boat in the dark, or the bald head of a giant sea turtle surfacing for air. Physical evidence like this giant squid carcass lent credibility to the stories. Seeing these massive, fleshy remains washed up on a beach proved to coastal villagers that the deep ocean harbored giants. When these lethal maritime hazards are fused together by human terror, the legend of the sea monk becomes a way to categorize and communicate the very real dangers of the deep. There was also a spiritual layer to this maritime dread. Many believed the Umibōzu was formed by the Funayude, the vengeful spirits of drowned sailors who were denied proper burial rites and returned to drag others down with them. This combination of physical rogue waves, biological giants, and fear of the restless dead created the Umibōzu. It serves as a reminder that the ocean's power is indifferent, and survival depends on preparation and a bit of quick thinking. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more deep dives into history and folklore, and keep a bottomless barrel ready the next time you head out to sea. Picture a misty, moonlit forest in Edo period Japan, located near the roaring plunge of Jōren Falls. The only sound cutting through the damp air is the steady rush of water. Deep within the trees, a traveler might stumble upon a breathtaking courtesan draped in an opulent, layered golden silk kimono. She sits peacefully on a mossy rock, delicately playing a biwa lute. But that pristine illusion shatters when you look into the deep darkness behind her. Rising from the shadows is her true form, a massive, horse-sized yokai with glowing eyes and razor-sharp pedipalps. This terrifying archetype is the Jorōgumo. As one of Japan's most enduring predatory legends, it survives in the cultural memory by weaponizing human desire and hospitality against the victim. The folklore actually begins in the natural world. This image shows the Joro spider, a real species native to Japan. It's famous for spinning massive, golden webs spanning several feet across heavy tree canopies. This myth evolved from a deliberate linguistic pun. The phonetic spelling, Jorōgumo, translates to courtesan spider, mocking the alluring beauty of Edo period elites. But written using the standard kanji, it translates to entangling bride, explicitly describing its method of trapping prey. By combining a real arachnid predator with clever wordplay, the Jorōgumo effectively captures the Edo-era societal anxieties surrounding seduction and deceptive appearances. According to the 1732 Edo period text, the Taipei Hyakumonogatari, animals don't need to be born with magical abilities. They can transcend mortality strictly through sheer longevity. This timeline charts the specific supernatural mechanism. Once an ordinary Joro spider lives for exactly 400 years, it begins absorbing ambient spiritual energy, known as yoki. This energy grants it the power to shapeshift. At this stage, its physical capabilities are terrifying. It develops venomous mandibles and silk glands powerful enough to produce threads that can easily snap heavy wooden beams. Yet, despite possessing overwhelming physical strength and horse-like size, the Jorōgumo rarely hunts as a beast. Instead, it chooses to orchestrate intricate psychological traps. The first method is the seductive musician. Near remote mountain waterfalls, the creature poses as an exquisite maiden holding a swaddled infant or playing a lute, deliberately targeting solitary wanderers. The second method is the illusionary haven. On the outskirts of rural towns, it conjures the illusion of a wealthy, secluded estate, inviting lonely travelers and monks inside for a warm cup of tea and a safe place to rest. While the victim is distracted by hospitality or music, the creature deploys a covert snare. It secretly wraps their legs and torso in near-invisible threats. Once the victim is immobilized, the illusion drops. The creature sheds its human disguise, paralyzes the prey with a bite of venom, and uses digestive enzymes to liquefy their insides. The Jorōgumo bypasses thick armor and drawn weapons entirely by convincing the prey to willingly surrender their own defenses. One of the most famous regional legends confirming this hunting style comes from Izu. A local woodcutter was resting peacefully right by the churning basin of Jōren Falls. Out of nowhere, he felt a strange tension around his foot. Looking down, he noticed a perfectly fine, supernatural silk thread stealthily tied around his ankle. Realizing he was marked by a yokai, he used his quick wit to save his life. He immediately slipped the loop off his ankle and tied it tightly around a heavy, rotten tree stump sitting nearby. Moments later, the thread snapped taut. The heavy tree stump was violently yanked into the churning waterfall basin by unseen massive strength. The woodcutter managed to flee. His story serves as a sharp cultural warning. Survival against the Jorōgumo relies entirely on situational awareness rather than brute strength. Local lore adds a chilling epilogue to the woodcutter's escape from the yokai. Another traveler, claiming he had fallen deeply in love with the beautiful woman of the falls, returned to the basin weeks later to find her. He vanished without a single trace. The Jorōgumo remains a terrifying legend because it perfectly mirrors a haunting reality. Breathtaking beauty and warm hospitality can sometimes mask a deadly, inescapable nightmare. If you manage to escape the web, hit the like button and subscribe for more deep dives into Japanese folklore. Let us know which yokai you want to see explored next, down in the comments.